Voting is the foundation of American democracy, the way we make our voices heard and choose our leaders. Every ballot cast is a building block of our collective future. But the power of your vote depends on how electoral maps are drawn. These invisible lines can amplify or diminish your voice, sometimes without you even realizing it. These maps decide which communities vote together, shaping who gets represented in Congress and who gets left out. They determine whether your neighborhood's needs are heard or ignored. When maps are manipulated, through tactics like cracking and packing, they can silence entire groups, making it nearly impossible for them to elect their preferred candidates. This isn't just a political game, it's a strategy that can change the course of people's lives. The rules for drawing these maps aren't just technicalities. They can predetermine election outcomes for a decade, locking in power for some and shutting out others. Imagine a city where a group's neighborhoods are split apart, ensuring their candidate never wins. This is cracking. It fragments communities, making it harder for them to have a unified voice. Packing, on the other hand, stuffs similar voters into one district, limiting their influence elsewhere. Their votes count, but only in one place, while the rest of the map is shaped to favor others. The lines on a map can be more powerful than the votes themselves, shaping who holds power in Washington and state capitals, and determining which voices are heard in the halls of government. Fair maps mean government reflects the people it serves. Manipulated maps undermine the principle of one person, one vote. When maps are drawn fairly, every community has a chance to be represented. If your district is drawn to make your vote meaningless, you lose your say on critical issues like healthcare, education, and the economy. The impact is personal, affecting your daily life and your family's future. The fight over voting maps is a direct struggle over your power as a citizen. It's about whether your voice counts or is drowned out by unfair lines. The recent Supreme Court case is a battle over the soul of American representation, with consequences that will echo for generations. The lines on a map can build bridges of representation, or barriers, and the difference affects us all, no matter where we live or who we vote for. Understanding this process is vital for every citizen. When you know how maps are drawn, you can demand fairness and help protect the power of your vote. To understand today's fight over voting maps, we have to look back at the roots of voting rights in America and the long struggle for equality at the ballot box. We need to revisit the Voting Rights Act of 1965, a revolutionary law born from the civil rights movement, shaped by the courage of activists who risked everything for the right to vote. For decades after the Civil War, Black Americans, especially in the South, faced poll taxes, literacy tests, and violence to keep them from voting. These barriers were designed to silence their voices and maintain white political power. The VRA outlawed these practices and put federal oversight in place for states with histories of suppression, ensuring that the federal government could intervene when states tried to block access to the polls. Section 5 required these states to get federal approval before changing voting laws, blocking new discriminatory rules before they could take effect. This was a powerful check on local officials who tried to find new ways to suppress the vote. Section 2, still in effect, bans any voting practice that results in denying or diluting the vote based on race, even without proof of racist intent. It protects voters nationwide, not just in the South. This results test lets communities challenge maps that weaken their voting power through tactics like packing and cracking, giving ordinary people a way to fight back against unfair district lines. After the Supreme Court's 2013 Shelby County decision gutted Section 5, Section 2 became the main tool for fighting discrimination, shifting the burden to communities to prove harm in court. The current Louisiana case is a direct challenge to Section 2's power and purpose, raising questions about whether the last major safeguard for fair voting will survive. The outcome could dismantle the most important protection left in this historic law, shaping the future of American democracy for generations to come. Louisiana is now the center of a major voting rights battle. After the 2020 census, the state's new congressional map was challenged by civil rights groups and Black voters under Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act. Black residents make up nearly a third of Louisiana's population, but only have a real chance to elect their candidate in one of 6 districts. Plaintiffs say this is classic vote dilution. Black voters are packed into one district and cracked across the rest, ensuring white-preferred candidates win 5 seats. Louisiana officials argue their map follows race-neutral principles, and that creating a second majority Black district would mean prioritizing race above all else. They claim the VRA should only fix intentional discrimination, not just results. The Supreme Court must now decide, should states ensure fair minority representation, even if it means considering race, or move toward a colorblind approach, even if it reduces minority voices? The answer will set a national precedent for fair representation. Supporters of the current Voting Rights Act say it's still essential for fighting racial discrimination in elections. They believe that even decades after its passage, the act remains a critical safeguard against both old and new forms of voter suppression that can threaten the foundation of American democracy. They argue Section 2 addresses not just blatant racism, but also subtle barriers like vote dilution through map manipulation. These tactics can weaken the voting power of minority communities, making it harder for them to elect representatives of their choice, even when discrimination isn't obvious. The Supreme Court's 2023 Allen v. Milligan decision reaffirmed the results test, requiring proof that a minority group is large, cohesive, and usually defeated by block voting. This legal standard is designed to ensure that only genuine cases of discrimination are addressed, not every instance of electoral loss. This is a high bar, ensuring remedies are only used when truly needed. It prevents frivolous lawsuits and focuses attention on real, systemic problems that undermine fair representation. Data shows Section 2 lawsuits have actually decreased, proving it's a last resort, not a tool for endless race-based districting. This decline suggests that the law is being used carefully and judiciously, not abused for political gain. Removing this protection would ignore ongoing racially polarized voting, especially in places like Louisiana. In these areas, the struggle for equal access to the ballot is far from over, and Section 2 remains a vital shield for minority voters. The VRA isn't about guaranteeing outcomes, but about guaranteeing a fair opportunity for all. It's about making sure every eligible citizen, regardless of race, has a real chance to participate in the democratic process. As long as race remains a powerful predictor of political experience, Section 2 is necessary to ensure every voice can be heard. Without it, the risk of backsliding into exclusion and inequality grows. The fight is for a democracy that actively works to fulfill its promise of equality, not just in words, but in practice, so that every American, now and in the future, can trust their vote truly matters. Opponents argue the current use of the Voting Rights Act now perpetuates racial divisions. Louisiana and its allies say Section 2, as interpreted, forces states to sort voters by race, violating the Equal Protection Clause. They want a colorblind approach, drawing maps by geography and communities, not race. They argue the VRA should only fix intentional discrimination, not statistical disparities. Guaranteeing representation based on demographics, they say, creates racial entitlements and undermines individual rights. Critics also question how long race-conscious districting should continue. Recent Supreme Court decisions limiting race in other areas signal growing skepticism about any government action based on race. They urge the court to move toward truly race-blind redistricting. Louisiana's demographics and voting patterns reveal why this case matters. Black residents are about a third of the population, but only have a real shot at electing their candidate in one of 6 districts. Racially polarized voting is extreme. Studies show over 84% of white and black voters choose different candidates. No black candidate has ever won statewide office in Louisiana. All black members of Congress have come from majority-minority districts. Without these districts, Louisiana's delegation would likely remain all white. Plaintiffs aren't just seeking partisan advantage, they're challenging a system that systematically denies a third of the population equal representation. The state's race-neutral principles have produced anything but neutral results. The data shows exclusion and dilution are still real. Section 2 remains as necessary today as ever. At the Supreme Court, justices revealed deep divisions over the future of Section 2. Liberal justices worried that weakening it would revive discrimination the VRA was meant to stop, citing recent precedent in Allen v. Milligan. They focused on the real-world results of Louisiana's map, not just the mapmaker's intent. Conservative justices questioned the endless use of race in redistricting, suggesting it leads to perpetual racial gerrymandering. They asked if there's any endpoint to race-based districts, and whether partisan outcomes, not race, explain the map's effects. The debate is about more than lines on a map. It's about the meaning of equality in American law. The fate of Section 2 hangs on which vision of equality the court embraces. The decision will shape voting rights for years to come. The Louisiana case's impact will reach far beyond state lines. Weakening Section 2 would let southern states dismantle majority-minority districts, slashing black representation in Congress. Analysts say Republicans could flip a dozen House seats, shifting control of Congress for a decade. The ruling would also weaken the VRA's power to deter all forms of voting discrimination, making it harder to challenge subtle suppression tactics. If proving racist intent becomes necessary, many new restrictions could go unchallenged. This case could reverse decades of progress since the civil rights movement. It could end the federal government's strong role in protecting minority voting power. The ripple effects would reshape political power and representation for generations. The stakes could not be higher for American democracy. The Supreme Court's decision will define the future of American democracy. If Section 2 is upheld, minority communities keep a vital tool to challenge unfair maps, and the promise of the Voting Rights Act endures. Louisiana would have to redraw its map, and other states would be held to the same standard. If Section 2 is weakened, minority representation could plummet, and challenging discrimination would become nearly impossible. The Voting Rights Act would lose its power as a check on state abuses. This ruling isn't just about maps, it's about what kind of country we want to be. Will we work to remedy discrimination and ensure all voices are heard, or ignore real disparities in the name of colorblindness? The court's decision will draw a line in the sand for the future of the American vote.